Welcome into Basketball by Association. My name is Basketball. That is Association over there on the side. Mr. Joel C. Cordes. Mr. Association, how are you today? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it is good to be here. We're going to have a foul-filled, hack-filled type of episode like we always do. But this one, I think, extra. So, 161 episodes into Basketball by Association in this iteration of it. There are no players in NBA history who have logged 161 NBA career playoff games, Arky, Shea, but we're going to go deep into the list and instead talk about fouls. Yeah.
Can I offer, and we did not talk about this beforehand, Can I offer a player of my own for this number?
Yes.
Can I offer in a tribute to ABA NBA Hall of Famer George McGinnis, who just passed away this morning as we're recording. 73 years old, Indiana Pacers hometown guy. I think they won a championship, or maybe two championships.
Two championships, yep.
They did one. Was from the Indianapolis area. Got to go and be able to play for his hometown team. So I know he's number 30, and I know we'll probably never get to a 30 again, unless we start figuring out how to go backwards in time. But I offer, if that's okay with you, that we name this the George McGinnis episode.
I am 100% on board with that. McGinnis, a 6-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA, 3-time All-ABA. He was on the ABA all-time team for good reason, 2-time ABA champ with the Pacers. He's on the 71-72 All-Rookie team, and he was the 74-75 MVP of the ABA. So in good company, that 74-75 season averaged 29.8 points per game and 14 boards a game.
Wow.
Dude could crush it. Yeah, you look at a couple of those years from 72 basically through 77, 78. He was on a roll. Man was on a roll.
I think I read this morning that like during that 75 playoff run, he averaged like 33 a game or something. Just like I think he averaged like nearly a triple double. I can't remember the numbers were, but like they were silly. It's like 33 and 15 or 16 or 17 or something like that. And during that 75 title run. So that was pretty cool. So
and career numbers, I mean, for his 842 career games, averaged 20 points, 11 boards, nearly 4 assists per game, spanning 12 seasons. So rest in peace, George McGinnis, for sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about this here basketball. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Mr. Joel C. Cordes, and everyone that is listening. I have not seen a ton of basketball this last week. I've seen some, but I have not seen what I normally get a chance to sit down and watch. It's Christmas season in my house. There's a lot of stuff happening, so I've lost a few minutes on the TV here and there. But I do know that you're not allowed to go cold cocking people in the side of the face on inbounds plays. That's still technically something I'm able to remember.
Rumor has it that that's frowned on, yeah.
Even though I didn't see that live, I did see Yusuf Nurkic get decleated onto the court by Draymond Green. Draymond Green indefinitely suspended. If you're a fan of this podcast and you're obviously a fan of the NBA and you already know that, I think it's time to sort of spin this forward a little bit because now we have. I think we already had a pattern problem here with Draymond Green and sort of his intentions and his attitude. Even his own coach, Steve Kerr, who was asked after the games, I think the question literally was, "Oh, so what do you do?" And Steve Kerr's response was, "Keep working at it." Like he was just like you could tell he's visibly like, "I don't know, man. Like I don't know what else you want me to do." Like how many times I have to tell him, don't kick guys in the ding-a-ling, or don't punch guys in the face, or don't get guys in headlocks. Like a dude's going to do what the dude's going to do, right? At this point, if you're Draymond Green. So let's talk about what this means for Draymond Green and the Warriors going forward. Draymond Green, we've talked about it on this podcast, is an aging guy whose skill set is diminishing. He's also on a big fat contract right now. I don't know when he comes back, but do we think that there's anybody else that would want to even talk to the Warriors about taking this quote-unquote consistent headache off of their team?
Yes, probably. Let's first talk about what's going on with Draymond and the Warriors. It struck me that the same thing that's affecting Draymond, and in this case, he said it was an accident. I was trying to sell the call. I actually apologized to Yusuf. That this is different than some of the other cases where I meant to do stuff like I did not mean to do it. Okay, intention or not, you still are flailing around completely out of control. And that's not all that different than the times that you are purposely out of control. It's having the same effect. But the thing that struck me was not Draymond Green's elbow, but it's the connection between him, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, who we've talked a ton about on this podcast. And then dating back a few years ago is Carmelo Anthony. And I drew the comparisons to Allen Iverson before that. The lack of self-awareness is the connective tissue here. And in Draymond's case, it's not only self-awareness of where you fit in the league and how your skill set is and how a team may build or not build around you, or putting your foot in your mouth, as it's been with Kyrie. Harden has been especially like where he fits in today's NBA, all that stuff. I mean, in Draymond Green's case, it's literal physical self-awareness of where you are on the court as you swing your arms around like a toddler and hit somebody. Like, we have to teach our kids when they're little self-awareness and body awareness. Like, I'm sorry, Draymond, but there's been too many times where it's been intentional to call this one unintentional and expect that there's not going to be massive fallout. Like, this is not necessarily a raw deal for Draymond. It's an unfortunate one. And I don't know, like, I've watched the video a whole ton of times. I don't know how you can whip around like that, flailing your arms, and not know that the defender who was behind you a split second ago that you're trying to sell the call on is still there.
He's touching him. They're in contact. Like the excuses don't make sense for him. No. Period. Okay. I get it. He knew that when that happened, and I think it's the third time he's been ejected from a game this season. It was a flagrant 2, immediately gone. Obviously now the second time he's been suspended this year for on the court conduct. So I don't know if you're Draymond. I don't know if you're the NBA. How you could stay out of this to start off with. You have to come in and you have to throw the hammer. A lot of people thought he got off light with the previous suspension. Now, I think some people are like, he's protecting his teammate, trying to maybe de-escalate a little bit, even though I would argue a rear naked choke isn't a de-escalation by any stretch. But he's trying to.
There are other options. You have other options on the table.
Maybe he's trying to stop the initial altercation in the scuffle. But the history of him cannot be ignored. You're a repeat offender. And
even that headlock thing.
You should probably have one more championship ring if it wasn't for a flagrant on your part to the man part of the biggest superstar in the league at the time. It's just
even that headlock. Like, again, the self-awareness part of it. If you're trying to de-escalate with Rudy Gobert, and I'm sorry, I mean, he's a Timberwolf. I'm a Wolves homer. I've come around on Rudy Gobert this season. He's a Defense of the Year candidate, whatever. But Rudy Gobert is a fake tough guy. He's not a real tough guy in the NBA. So when Rudy is pissed and he's rushing in there into this altercation, which is spilling over, is Rudy Gobert going to throw actual punches to where you need to headlock the guy from behind in order to keep him because he has such a reputation? No. If anybody, if anything, it'd be Draymond rushing into the scrum and somebody jumps on his back to headlock him because there's a history there to go, Draymond, don't throw that punch. Come on, man. Like,
you know what Draymond is? Draymond's a tough guy who played at a tough college program in Michigan State, who fought like the Dickens for his talent level to be this successful in the modern NBA. Now that's gone away. He's always sort of been this tough physical enforcer type guy. I think he sees himself as like, I'm the protector of this team, of this dynasty that we've built. I'm the one that has to go out, and I'm your Charles Oakley. Like, I'm the guy that's going to get out there and I'm just going to muck it up for you if you need be. I'm going to talk trash the entire game, and lots of people do it. But like at this point, I feel like it's also escalated where he's screaming constantly, trying to be that not only instigator, but that guy that gets under your skin to try to get
for
into your
a 10
head.
and 13 Warriors team.
Exactly. So that's why I'm interested now, because we don't know what the pitch is going to be, obviously, right? He's going to lose a couple $100,000 a game, whatever. No big deal if it's 20 games. Let me ask you this. Should it be more than 20 games? Ja Morant got what, 25, right? Ja Morant's about to come back. Should this be more than 20 games? 25. Let's do the 25. Should this be more than the Ja Morant number?
20 games, but you have the understanding with the players union, because that's where this is going to get hung up, and the understanding with Draymond that the next one doubles. It goes from 20 to 40 in the next instance. And you're laying that down for the Warriors at that case to go, do we really want to miss this guy for half a season the next time he can't control himself? They can't do right now it's indefinite, but a number will be attached to this. Sure. It's while they're figuring it out. You can't suspend somebody indefinitely. The players union won't allow that. It's been pointed out that
this was a reaction right afterwards. Like they knew the NBA is trying to get ahead of it to be like, okay, he's just suspended indefinitely. Let's buy ourselves some time and some PR, and let's figure out what this number is going to be.
I think this will be unpopular, but in this case, I could see not doing 20 games and doing less than that. Yes, I know there's a track record, but this isn't a case of this is different than the Gobert situation. This is different than there was a fight on the court. This is a player who's out of control. I think it is a 50-50 call whether he meant or not to get Nurkic the way that he did. If you throw an intentional punch, yeah, you're looking at 20 to 25 games like that, especially if you have history, especially if it was, a defenseless player, that sort of thing. They're going to look at all of that. But I could see this going either way. There is a gray area about whether it's intentional. It's stupid either way. It's completely oblivious either way, which is the problem with Draymond. It's the obliviousness to everything that's going on and the inability to self-correct, the unwillingness to self-correct, whatever it is. It's no different than, some of those other guys that I mentioned who are unwilling or unable to self-correct, but this one is at a physical level. It's different than the Ja case because that's guns, that's literal life or death, and there's a track record there of off the court legal issues that have been mounting. So, yeah, I mean, but it's got to escalate. I do think the Warriors have to take a long, hard look now about whether Draymond fits into the future plans. He may think he does, and that may be why he's overcompensating, but they're 10 and 13. This isn't working. There was still time to figure this out, but not if you're missing Draymond for 20.
So two quick things. One, I think this needs to be at least a 15, 20-game suspension. I think you talk about the multiple instances, LeBron, the Domantas Sabonis issue, obviously Nurkic, the Rudy Gobert.
A whole bunch of others that we're just forgetting about because there's many, listen, we don't even remember them all.
The NBA didn't even suspend him for punching his own teammates, right? Like that's on his record. Like we know that's happened. Video, we've seen our eyeballs. That
stuff does happen in practice, and when it's not a game, the league typically is deferred to.
I'm not saying the league should have stepped in. I'm okay with what the Warriors decided that they wanted to do to handle their stuff inside, but this just adds to the amount of stuff that's on the plate when you're trying to judge someone's case. If you go into a courtroom, for example, and you see someone's been there 4 previous times for similar things, well, the judge is going to say, well, buddy, you're not learning your lesson. So maybe the probation last time wasn't what you should have gotten. Maybe you should do a little time in the clink. And I think at this point, the NBA sees this as a big issue because I'm with you. I think Draymond sees his connection with this Warriors team as tenuous. And I think I see, and not even just a connection with the team, which is also part, being, I guess, emotionally connected and feeling like a part of the team, but also knowing that he's not the same guy. And this is a team that's in a little bit of flux, right? They're trying to figure out how to go from this one part of the dynasty to revamp enough with some more youth and some more different bodies to reinvigorate the dynasty to a new one while still keeping, Steph and I don't know where Clay is going to be on that list, and we got time for the Warriors at some point much later down the road to figure out what they are, and we'll talk about them. But specifically with this Warrior team, who's already spending way more money than they should be, just trying to keep a few dudes around that are now really aging, and a couple of them can't even play nearly as good as they used to. I don't know. I think there's a serious look into the Warriors wanting to be able to possibly see if there's any wiggle room for somebody to come in and take them. I just don't know who in the NBA in 2023-24 NBA is going to want to take that contract from the Warriors for that type of production.
So there are a handful of teams.
Also, this is contender-wise, I would think. Contender-wise, I think. But, go ahead. Sorry.
So before we get to potential trade destinations, one of the unfortunate things out of all of this, and I do agree, by the way, that 15 games seems about right. 2025 seems high to me for this, but 15 for Draymond.
I think you announce it 2025, and then you'll probably get a little bit of fight back, and you may be able to get it back down to 15. But I don't want to go 15 and then get fought back down to 7 or something,
Yeah, that's fair. Draymond just signed this new contract extension, which means he's not eligible to be traded until December 15th, which at time of taping is tomorrow.
Hey,
so now you're getting suspended right before they could have moved you. But if and when he becomes available, and I don't recall if he's suspended, if you can trade him. I know that there's rules around injured players being traded, but I think you can. There are a handful of teams where Draymond would make sense and you could make the numbers work. So let's just walk through some of these. There are a couple of teams out there who deal with veteran players and headache veteran players. And Draymond's contract, while a lot of people are going to go, oh my goodness, he's overpaid. After this year, he's going to have 3 years left at $22 million a year. But the thing is, that's not that huge of a number in today's NBA. You can make that work. For example, the LA Clippers have been loading up on veterans, including headache veterans like James Harden and like Russell Westbrook. But you could essentially trade Norman Powell and PJ Tucker for Draymond Green, bring Draymond into that group of, superstars and former names and whatever, and see how it goes. And you would get another player back because Powell and PJ Tucker, between the two of them, is $39 million a year. So Golden State would have to throw in somebody to get rid of Draymond, and the Clippers could use that. If I'm the Clippers, I'm making that phone call already. Norman Powell is a nice bench scorer, but you have enough offense on that team. And if you want to lean into this identity, Draymond fits there, and it's with another veteran group. It's not like he has to move super far. I would do that in a heartbeat. A similar situation, an aging team that could use a shot in the arm, that has the infrastructure, that believes they could handle someone like Draymond Green, and that he would buy into the ethos there. You know who I'm about to say. It's the Miami Heat, right? The Miami Heat could make this happen. Again, you move Kevin Love, who's completely washed up. I'm sorry, Kevin, but it's obvious, he's done. And yet Kevin Love in a Warriors front court knocking down some threes like Dario Saric does. You can do that, and you move Kyle Lowry, who I know has been a good soldier, but he's on an expiring contract. You probably get a third team involved in that, but you could make that happen today. You could make it happen with Duncan Robinson's contract. But again, Duncan Robinson to the Warriors would be a godsend, and I don't know why the Heat would be willing to give up on him, even though he's got $18 million a year for the next 2 years left. So there are ways to make that happen with those two teams that are front runners, but I don't think the list even ends there, Arky. Shea, there's a couple of other fits that I think would be great for Draymond, and then you can tell me which ones you like out of this or don't. In the East, there's another team front running that is really going for it, that they could make this happen, and it would be great for both teams, I think. The Philadelphia 76ers have found a ton of wing scoring. They've got their scoring with Tyrese Maxey. Do they really need Tobias Harris's front court scoring in Philly? He's making $39 million this year, but it's an expiring contract. You could make the numbers work to move Chris Paul and Draymond to Philly for Tobias Harris. You probably even have to sweeten the deal if you're Golden State to do that, and it's a 1-year rental. But Chris Paul is only on a 2-year deal, and Klay Thompson's contract is up at the end of this year too, as they search for how they're going to re-sign that. I think he's got the extension already set, but I may be mistaken there. But does Tobias Harris really fit? Do they add that toughness along with Joel Embiid when they don't necessarily need more scoring from Harris? I would look into that and kick the tires again. That may be a 3-team type of deal, but Draymond could fit in Philly. They loved PJ Tucker there. Couple of other instances.
I'm just going to say no. I don't like him.
All right, you don't like that one. Okay. A team on the come up here that already bought into one kind of crazy wild card guy. Why not add 2? If you're the Houston Rockets, yeah, you have Jabari Smith starting in the front court. You could bring Draymond off the bench, but realistically, you could make this happen with Victor Oladipo and Jeff Green's contracts. You know, Jeff Green goes to Golden State, consummate pro. He won a championship last year with Denver. He's not going to make mistakes. He's not going to be a headache. Houston probably has to sweeten the deal with a younger player or a pick in that. But why not? Why not add Draymond and Dylan Brooks on the same team and lean into this tough guy role for some of your young guys like Jalen Green, like Jabari Smith, Alperen Şengün. You got Fred VanVleet there already. I'm looking into that.
Because that they started out nicely this year that they would do that. Like if they were, 8-13 or something at that point, are we still thinking that this is something they'd consider? Because I don't think so.
If it's a young team with no veteran leadership and they're rudderless, then no, you're not going to bring Draymond into that situation. But where you have now this mix of young guys and veterans, the very thing that the Warriors are trying to search for, to bring in a guy with championship experience who's going to give you toughness, who's going to, again, double down on what Dylan Brooks is trying to do there. It's trading your headache to a different location, but sometimes it's okay to do that. And Draymond could be a valuable member of that team, provided, of course, that he can stay on the court. The same thing, I look at, this one's going to be tough. There's going to be a lot of people who would not like this. I don't think it would happen in a million years, but you can make it happen. The Indiana Pacers can't defend a parking cone, right? But they can get out and run, and they can score points. You don't need Buddy Hield's $19 million expiring contract in Indiana when you've got plenty of other wings who are knocking down shots. Does Draymond start instead of Obi Toppin? Maybe, maybe not. Does Obi Toppin get included in this deal to Golden State? Golden State would love for that to happen. Love, because then you've got a rim finish, above the rim finisher. But Indiana adds in another defender and a glue guy with Bruce Brown. I don't know that a level-headed situation like the Pacers and Rick Carlisle are going to want to bring that on. But you think about it, you see what the price is, and then the last team on this list, because they're always kicking the tires on veterans. Would you bring him into Dallas? Would you bring him to Luka? And I know Grant Williams is starting there already, but you've got $12 million a year in Rashawn Holmes, $11 million in Maxi Kleba, $4 million in Dwight Powell. You don't need all of those front court guys, especially when Derek Lively's kind of locking down the center spot. But you bring Draymond into that mix, and it's another veteran. It's another know-how type of guy. I could talk myself into most of those situations despite everything I've said about Draymond Green. And I am saying it's time for the Warriors to move on. It is time to break this up, get a different headache, a different problem to look at instead of the same old one. But a change of venue for Draymond Green, it could be a very positive thing for him too.
I went to go start looking while you're talking at some of what specifically what Draymond's doing this year, some of his numbers, right? And some numbers don't always tell the complete story. But
his box score numbers are not great.
There's some decent defensive efficiency numbers there for him. But I mean,
player efficiency rating overall is still at a respectable level.
Yeah, but we're talking $25 million a year for respectable, and if you're Houston, are you bringing that kind of a potential headache? Here's the thing, like I think if you ask me, I don't know, maybe if a change of scenery helps him, so to speak. But I would consistently be worried that this dude's now getting to his point in his career where I can't count on him just being available. Be consistently on the team to even help my young guys. You know, I don't know,
To
man.
me, that
I think Draymond how old's Draymond? I just had that up. Draymond he's fudge. He's 33, right? So
yeah.
so he's 33, but he's a hard 33, right? That's fair. Like
Mhm.
it's a hard 33
Mhm.
for a guy who didn't have a lot other than grinding that sort of basically would work out for him. But
I think that question, though, Arky, doesn't keep teams from looking in or even bringing him on board. What it does is it changes the price, it changes the offer. You're not
no,
talking about straight up star swaps. You're talking about role players who
I can
also
respect
have
that.
inflated contracts.
I respect that, but I just mean like if you are one of those who's looking to possibly swap contracts,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
thinking you might get some type of upgrade for, you're not talking about, like you say, you're not talking about just it's a price adjustment, right? You're just sort of seeing, can you get like the great value price of for Draymond Green? Is it still
For a
even worth?
guy that you were hardly using anyway, or who wasn't necessarily moving the needle in a huge way. That's where I can understand not loving the Philly deal, because Tobias Harris still
Yeah,
is a needle mover for Philly. I get that.
yeah. I don't know. If you were asking me, if I was running a team like, let's say, the Knicks, or just any other team,
Mhm.
I feel like Draymond is just completely a no go for me at this point. Um,
Even if you're somebody like the Clippers, or you're somebody, maybe like
I
Dallas
I
or
don't care who I
Miami,
am at
who
this
they
point. If
need a
I'm
shot in the
if
arm.
if,
Okay.
if I'm Golden State, I'm out on them.
Mhm.
Like I'll listen to people to sort of try to come get them, but I don't want them. And I mean, I'll keep them on the roster and keep playing him. Obviously, I won't tell Steve Kerr what to do. But I feel like if somebody wants to come get him, sure. I'm out of love
Mhm.
with Draymond, and I think there are franchises that would love him, right? I'm sure the Golden State fan base, I know they love him. Places like Philly, probably the fan base would embrace him and would embrace the kind of physicality he is. Boston, a franchise like that, the fan base
Mhm.
would embrace
Miami
him.
too. Miami too.
Miami, they that I don't know about the fan base as much as the culture has sort of turned the fan base into sort of liking that.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I feel like I think it's fair to say though. I think the market would be thin on him, but probably not zero. It's just it had to be the right spot.
Right. And this is a guy like James Harden, and you kind of hesitated when you're like, well, what would contenders want to do with him? I think it's only contenders or quasi contenders
Really?
who kick the tires, because you don't want him near your young players, your development,
Well, see,
getting that off
that's
track,
why I thought when you said Houston, that was kind of interesting. That
Hmm.
because like that is such a young team and they've started out nicely, that I could
But I
see
think
someone
based on
someone getting an earworm saying maybe we want to
Mhm.
sort of try bringing in some of this veteran leadership, see if we can solidify ourselves into a first playoff run in a little while.
Well, and I think based on the tea leaves of what else they did by bringing in Dylan Brooks, Fred Van Vliet, Aaron Holiday, who at this point is a veteran,
Yeah, that's true.
Jeff Green, especially, Reggie Bullock is there, and he's been around the league for ages at this point. Like, they brought in those veterans all this year for a reason. It's because they wanted to be able to take that next step. They needed to insulate the younger guys who were there, not only on the court, but also to show them the ropes. Again, do you really want Draymond showing all the ropes? No, but could Draymond be helpful in pushing a guy like Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Jay Sean Tate, those guys in practice, and on the court, and taking over again that enforcer role along with Dylan Brooks? If you're the Houston Rockets, why not lean into being a heel team? Why not lean into that and get those young guys that edge and go that route? You otherwise, prior to this point, you had no identity other than an extremely exciting athletic team that could not win games for the life of them. That's been the Houston Rockets over the last couple of years.
I can see that argument being made. I still personally wouldn't pull that trigger, but I can see how that could sort of pull somebody over the edge and say, you know what, let's make this happen, especially because it's not going to be a long-term contract if we keep it. It's not super expensive when it comes to guys who've been in the league as long as he's been in the league. I mean, I say
I mean,
just
it
33.
is
I mean,
long
he's been in the
term.
league for
It
what,
is
11
long
years, 12
term.
years?
Yeah, it is long term when you're staring down 3 more years of this, but it's 22 million a
I was gonna
year.
say it's the number of years, which is just 3, but it's
Mhm.
also the price. It's not 20. It's not 3 years at 39 million. It's
Right.
3 years at 22, and it's someone that you don't have to play 32 minutes a game. And it's someone that you could say the leadership, the showing the top ropes of the WWE to the roster could be that valuable to them to start,
Mhm.
continuing to their upward momentum toward the playoffs, hopefully this year, and maybe becoming a serious contender, depending on a couple moves over the next couple of years. So
Jeff Green's playing 22 minutes, or no, was playing 15 minutes a game
he's not playing a ton, yeah.
for Houston, and you soak up a few minutes from elsewhere. But I don't even know if Houston's the front runner. I do think somewhere like Dallas would definitely make the call. Miami will make the call just to see. And the Clippers really should be making this type of call. Like,
I
again,
feel
if
like
you have an identity, why not double down on it? Why
the
not just go
Clipper.
for it?
I think the and then we can move on after this. I think the depressing part is that the Clippers are the number one contender. Like they are that desperate team that has been dying to make this run eventually, has been dying on the vine with injuries over the last few seasons, and now they make a couple big moves that they're ready for something to finally all click together so badly that they'd be interested in making this move. And who knows, it may not be a terrible move for them. Like it may be a move that actually vaunts them into like the West semis or something. I don't know.
If it flames out, you already had like 6 other things that could flame out about this team, whether it's Kawhi's health, Paul George's health, Russell Westbrook's headspace, James Harden's, ability to be the system or play within a system. Like you have all of these different variables. So at this point, like it's not taking a team like Houston or Indiana and messing with a good thing. You're just leaning into what you've already leaned so far into that, as you said, like bringing Draymond off the bench, or which is probably what would happen with this group, but him and Russ as the lead subs. Yeah, you're going to lose some of Norman Powell's scoring, but maybe you play Bones Highland more. You will be able to find some other veterans to score, but you have enough of that already. Like James Harden's not going to turn down more shots. Paul George probably would love to take a couple less, but you've got Kawhi Leonard. He's stayed healthy so far, knock on wood. This could be done. Spacing in the second unit would be a little bit iffy. Norman Powell's a fine player, but I mean, Powell would be very, very helpful for these Warriors, for example. Like, if I'm Golden State, I would pull that deal in a heartbeat too.
If the Clippers do this, it's a 100% chance it does not work out. But you know what? The good point is, like you brought up, when you do the autopsy in the season, you'll never know the cause of death. You'll never be able to figure it out. Like it will be one of 6 or 7 things where it's like, all right, this just didn't work. we'll try next year. All right, so we got a few minutes left here. I wanted to, because I didn't get a chance to watch a ton of basketball. Is there something that you wanted to mention first that I may have seen and we can talk about? So I don't want to miss out on what you definitely wanted to get to, because I think the gist of this was Draymond Green being just a poopy face,
as he is wont to do. Probably the only other big thing to really call out this week, Bradley Beal making his debut with the Phoenix Suns, including in the Draymond Yusuf Nurkic game, but which the Suns won. And then
that should have been the headline really from the game. Like that should have been, we'll never get to talk about it that long term, because
well, Beal then, playing last night's second game of a back-to-back, that's a great sign that right away he's playing on a back-to-back.
I was surprised to see that. So the NBA gives that like it's in its communications, to get like its injury report. They update it like every hour, that kind of thing, like what the latest is going to be, right? So you can sort of monitor it basically for gambling. And the fact that Bradley Beal played in that game for the second of back-to-back, I was like, wow, okay, that's nice. I was not expecting that. I expected one game back, let's slowly transition him, but he maybe he's just ready to do something,
And, the Suns absolutely need that. They had Josh Okogie starting with Beal and Booker in that first game against the Warriors. Durant didn't play. Durant comes back and Okogie sat against the Nets in the loss. Chimezie Metu suddenly is in the starting lineup. I kind of like that idea of having a grinder, having a guy who can play above the rim a little bit. You don't necessarily need another shooter, and Josh Okogie's more of a defender at this point, but he's a wing. I don't know what to make out of this Phoenix Suns team, and I know you picked them to win the championship. On paper, there's so much shooting.
What championship? Not the NBA, right?
No, you did. You chose the Suns to win the title, not the NBA Cup.
Gonna have to delete that podcast.
Yeah. I just, as I watch them play, it's a continuity thing, and some of that should improve over time. There's no questioning the ability of Devin Booker or the fact that Durant's got all sorts of stuff left in the tank. I don't know what Beal has left in the tank because he can't stay healthy. And I'm just concerned that there's a difference between complementary skill sets and overlapping skill sets.
Well, this was my worry last year. This was my worry last year that I didn't think it was just that they didn't have enough time together. And, obviously Bradley Beal's a whole new thing with this. But I'm with you. Whatever's not clicked yet, right? Clearly it's clicked, but Bradley Beal's just back, but I don't know. I don't know if this team's going to be as good as I'd hoped it to be.
All of their best players are shooters and scorers. Like, you throw Eric Gordon into that mix, and there's some other good role players there. I am a big Josh Okogie fan, and Devin Eubanks, or Drew Eubanks, I should say, has been effective as Nurkic's backup. But outside of Nurkic, who has been on a roll with Beal back, and maybe something gets unlocked there where they've got some good chemistry, or the fact that Booker's been back a little bit. Nurkic really was off to a rough start to this season when it was just him and Durant. There may be different layers here that open up, and Devin Booker has played point guard before. Beal's done a little bit of that. So this is such a work in progress team. I look at Phoenix and I see so much overlap between their top guys, and I don't necessarily see that when I look at the Lakers, who I chose to win the championship begrudgingly, or even Denver. Denver has a very delineated group of skill sets in that starting lineup. But
as
many of these other
top, they're allowed to play Mr. Jokic, as long as Nikola's allowed to play.
Right.
By the way, did you see when he got ejected in Chicago? Like, did you hear the fans were booing because they're like, dude, how often do you think we get this guy here? How often is the best player in the league here, and you guys are just getting him out of here immediately? Come on.
Every other team that you look at who's a true contender, and I shouldn't say every other because I'm sure there's an exception here or there, but Sacramento, the Lakers, Denver, Philly, Boston, Milwaukee, what have you. There's different skill sets that complement one another. And Phoenix seems to be doubling down so much on the scoring and shooting side that, it is today's modern NBA. These are multifaceted stars. I'm just a little bit concerned about how that shakes out when you don't have time to get into chemistry, because, and again, we got 3/4 of the season left to go, but the Suns, to me, are the type of team that will only win if they have crazy chemistry going on, to the point that you cannot guard all of these shooters. They're draining it from everywhere. You think about the Dallas Mavericks the year that they won the championship with Dirk, and all of their shooters were on all the time in that run. It's going to take something like that. You won't be able to get to that if guys don't stay healthy. So they're a big work in progress. I guess the other thing, this is low-hanging fruit, but Giannis,
I just want to follow up on that because that's an interesting point. Because I was looking, as you were saying, looking at the teams that they might have to go through with Phoenix to be able to get to that. If this kind of style where it's just scoring is going to have to be able to push them, and that's not going to win the West this year. Unless they are white hot, unless they are that Maverick team's a good example. Unless they are just lightning, I don't think that's going to win the West this year, man. And you're right. There's a long time to go, but that is something that we don't have to freak out over yet. But it is worth noting. That's a good point.
The Suns are 12th in scoring so far this season, and again, that's just in straight points per game. I know there's all sorts of different metrics you can use, but they're also 14th defensively. So middle of the pack, there's room to improve on either end. How much are they actually going to improve putting Bradley Beal in the starting lineup and getting more minutes out of Devin Booker? How much do they improve on the defensive end? The answer is probably not much, right? Their guys are their guys, and you might even be playing some of your better defenders fewer minutes now because Beal is soaking up so much of that in the starting lineup. So I don't know. I'm not against this Suns team, but I'm not bullish, especially when, as you said, the West has got its fair share of good teams like it does every year. Some of them are very defensive oriented, like Minnesota. Somebody like Oklahoma City is so loaded with young wings that they can defend that sort of thing. And then the Lakers, I think, also are equipped to defend a team. And the Clippers, if healthy, are equipped to defend a wing-heavy scoring team like the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Minnesota. OKC was the team I totally was going to mention because they could provide a nightmare scenario for Phoenix in its series. Denver, LA, Los Angeles could be really, really difficult for them. So unless they sort of figure some of this out over the next few months, it's worth watching. It's worth paying attention to.
I was just let's give kudos here to Giannis, 64 points, 17
Why?
boards.
Well, we can talk about Taj Gibson's return. We're really going to talk about Giannis doing a career high.
Right. Real quick, here's the headline with Taj Gibson. Old man wants to go on a walk, can't find his new hat, picks his old standby hat instead, goes for a walk. That's the headline in New York.
Listen.
Taj Gibson is the hat that is at the bottom of the closet, and you go, oh yeah, that one works. I guess I'll go.
Mitchell Robinson's hurt, so you bring in the comfiest coat and hat you got. You bring in what you really, really feel good about.
Taj is a pro, and Taj belongs on a lot of rosters as your 15th man to help the youngsters in practice to essentially be a player coach. I'm about that all day. Taj Gibson, consummate pro. Taj Gibson does not belong getting minutes in today's NBA anymore. I'm sorry. Sorry, Taj. I'm sorry, Knicks fans, Bulls fans, Wizards fans, whoever. Timberwolves fans. Like, he's been around the block too many times. The hat's got holes in it. Like,
yeah, but here's the thing with these quote unquote holes. They're old holes too. So that's a good thing.
Right.
I don't know.
It's a look.
I
don't
know. It fills a roster spot. He'll take up a few minutes. It's not going to be the worst thing in the world while Mitchell comes back. But maybe
Taj Gibson's the best guy that you could get off the waiver wire to soak up a few minutes. That's just what I don't understand. Like, for Tibbs, yes, because Tibbs goes. This is where it's like it's almost laziness. Tibbs goes. I won't have to tell this guy how we do things or train him up. Essentially, I won't have to coach this guy. Yeah. Therefore, I should bring him in. It's lazy.
He knows the guy. That's the thing. Like it is literally like the hat thing. He's just the most comfortable guy. You could get him up to speed quickly. He doesn't have to take, he's not taking a bunch of Julius Randle minutes, right? Like he's just going to be a big that could play a little bit to help sort of balance out the roster. It's not a great pickup. I don't love it. But like we just went with Derrick Rose, right? Like Derrick Rose is his kind of guy, despite the fact he ain't got no legs. Like he just was like, you're my point guard. I'm not giving it to anybody else ever. I know you can't shoot anymore. I know you can't use your legs anymore. I know the knees are gone. It's cartilage it's bone on bone, essentially. Cartilage all gone. But you know what I want to do, and you can grind like that. That's my thing. I'm a little disappointed in the Knicks so far this year. So a little disappointed. Again, too far to go, but whatever. But let's go back to Giannis. Career high 64. Tyrese Halliburton does a sweet little dunk on him. Giannis was like, it's the middle of December. I'm not going to let Halliburton do a little gesticulating here. Nice little shoulder bump, and bam, we're off to the races for 64 points. I guess the extra $500,000 wasn't enough incentive for him to be able to put up 64, but a little bit of flexing from Tyrese Halliburton, that'll do it for you. Huh?
Well, and the Pacers now have caught everyone's attention. The sneaking up portion of the season is over with the Pacers. The Lakers saw that, in the NBA Cup championship game. congratulations on the Pacers for getting that far. It's a measuring stick. We talked about that last week, where it's a good thing to have that type of measuring stick this early in the season. But I think the backside is, like, the element of surprise is gone. And Milwaukee absolutely took Indiana seriously in this regular season game. There's a little bit of revenge factor there. Milwaukee does not want Indiana hanging around second place in the division, trying to push them for first, what have you. And if there was a team this year that Giannis is going to get 64 on, it might be these Pacers, who are, probably not even counting how many points he has, because they're going down to shoot on the other end already. Like, there's no adjustment being made. It's just let Giannis get his, and they lost. But there are a few teams, 140 to 126 and 64 points for the opposing player. You almost hear that this year and you go, that had to have been a Pacers game. That had to have been a Pacers game.
100%. It's like, oh, okay, that's the Pacers. Who the Pacers play? So, second worst in points allowed per game behind the Washington Wizards. But also, they're like 5 points clear of the highest scoring team that they are the Pacers. Fun stuff for them. But yeah, Giannis also, did you see him just sprinting after the ball afterwards, when like the Pacers are like, no, we're giving this ball to Oscar Tshiebwe, who just scored a point for the first time. This big Kentucky dude who couldn't get drafted. Like, this is what we're doing.
Well, and then what I get a kick out of is Giannis this entire time has maintained he wanted the game ball to give to Damian Lillard, because Lillard hit 1,245 threes, or whatever the number is, to pass Kyle Korver for 7th on the all-time NBA list. Like,
okay,
there's
buddy.
no way that's the real story. Like, it can't be. But either way, like, yeah, if you're the Pacers, give it to Giannis. And supposedly there's 2 different game balls that are used in Giannis now. I was like, I know I got the backup one. They didn't give me the real one. We played with the real one. I had that for 34 minutes or whatever. Like, that isn't the one.
This is the most bizarre battle. Like, and it's a really quick blip on the screen for the NBA season. But if you think about some of the small headlines that were just dum-dums throughout the season, these little tiny lollipops, you're like, huh? Giannis was fighting the game ball over with a bad premise.
Yeah, there's a scuffle in the hallway, and Rick Carlisle was
this
like,
many points before. Just tell us. That's okay.
Rick Carlisle was like, this is the 3rd time we've seen them in 4 weeks. We're just getting sick of each other. This is dumb. Like, even Rick Carlisle was like, we should have just given him the ball, like, whatever. But
I do like you want him to have the ball at each other. I do like a couple division teams in the Central being good enough to go back and forth at each other and being chippy, to where late December game means something.
And I like Tyrese Halliburton, who kind of came into the league with a nice guy rep. He was a talented player. You weren't sure how he was going to fit, but kind of overall nice, Iowa State kid, whatever. But that it's been growing now this year, where there's some aggressiveness. Like, yeah, he's barking a little bit. I don't know that it's cockiness, but it is a confidence in what he brings to the table.
He's confident.
Like, he knows
that he's feeling it. Yeah,
he knows I'm at this level now with these other guys, and my team needs me to ascend to this level, so I got to act the part too. And he's backing it up with his play on the court. So you're right. I like this rivalry. This is fun. These 2 teams should be going at each other all year. In the end, you get that game ball. I understand it's important, but look into the future and how many of these guys get to a point where they just begin auctioning all this stuff off, right? For charity, more power to them. Kareem is a great example. They start auctioning off because how many times can I look at that thing, which is in a closet somewhere, or maybe I've got my trophy room, but it's all these things. And you get to a certain point later in life where those trophies, they don't mean so much. The memory means more than the trophy itself. So yeah, it's like you said, it's a blip type of headline. It's silly. There's going to be a whole bunch of debate about it, but then in the end, it's just like, it's a meaningless thing. Yeah. It's a commemorative thing.
And what happens to the ball that he just now surpassed his previous high before?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does that now just go in the trash? Do you immediately auction off? It's the second highest game I ever had.
And if I'm Giannis and I want to be a class act, and most of the time Giannis is, I get that game ball. I keep it for myself. I buy a really special one for Oscar Tshiebwe. I sign it, Congratulations on your first point. And here's something that's even nicer than the game ball that guy probably will. Because, I mean, again, no disrespect to Oscar. It's going to be a long shot for him to have a 10-year NBA career and to have a whole bunch of accolades. But he's got this special commemorative thing of a guy who is being a class act to go, hey, man, I'm sorry I took your game ball. I did score 64 points, but here you go. You know, like, I think that's the way to handle this. And, you know, everybody comes out ahead that way.
Or here's another way, okay? And we'll never have to technically know it. If you're Giannis, you go get the ball, and then when people are asking you about it, you say, hey, listen, we do all this kind of stuff for charity all the time. I'd love to auction this off at some point for a charity to raise some money from the Boys and Girls Club or whoever.
Yeah.
Listen, it may take months. I'm guessing he's probably not going to score 65 this year, but he may. I don't know. Right. But if he doesn't, then he's
how many times do they play the Pacers again? That's really the only question here.
That's when, like, if you've won that auction, you're like, oh my God, the Pacers game is Thursday. Oh my God, he's gonna go for 70. He's gonna go for 70, and his ball's gonna be worthless. But like, it's just a fun thing where, like, you could tell, like, a lot of these players claim that they don't care about anything, but like, as soon as it's like, that's my ball, that's my ball, that's my ball. He's like, okay, my bad.
I do get it's 64 points and it's your career high ever. I fully am with that. But again, there's always a compromise to something if people are.
Do you know what the previous highest scoring game for him was?
Wasn't it 54 or 55? Because I know 57 was the Bucks all-time high that he went past, and he was just below it previous to this.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, because 55. Yeah, so 55 this last January, so almost a year ago, he scored 55. So 64, that's a bunch. The 55 was against another terrible defensive team, Washington. He actually scored 54 also last November against look at that, Indiana.
It's like there's a theme here or something. Previous record holder was 57 points by Michael Redd, which is an interesting name. Considering the fact that Milwaukee has had some big time scorers in their lineage, including Ray Allen and Glenn Robinson, guys like that, and dating back to the 80s, had a whole bunch of different big time scorers. But yeah, Michael Redd, who kind of had that brief period in the mid-aughts where all of a sudden he was scoring 25 plus points per game for a couple of seasons. So
Giannis, and then we can say goodbye. Giannis has scored 50 plus against the Pacers 3 times. He has scored 50 plus just 8 total times, and 3 has been against the Pacers. So, all right, fair enough. Not a great defensive team. So, but it's okay. They're fun to watch.
They'll be a better defensive team when they trade for Draymond, in order to use Draymond to be able to try to slow Giannis down. Maybe by elbowing him in the face. Who knows? Who's to say?
Hey, look, you and I talked about it, and you were right on it when we talked about that Halliburton trade with Sacramento a couple years. That was a pretty good deal for both teams, and not a lot of people were saying that at the time. Maybe Draymond comes in; it's a great thing for both teams, and then Tyrese Halliburton starts averaging like 7 a game, because it just turns into the old 1994 Knicks Heat.
No one wants that. See, the Pacers need to get incrementally better defensively, but there should be no one in the NBA who wants them to change the way that they're playing right now. They have been the league's most fun team, the funnerest team.
Listen, and if you're a team that's not one of the premiers, right, or you're not really, really super good, and Indiana's good, they're not super great at this point, be entertaining. That's how you get eyeballs. Like, if you're one of those franchises that, that struggling to get attention, if you could do it this way and have a couple of premier players on your team, really watchable guys that you can talk about all the time, put Halliburton on that list, baby.
100%.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here on this podcast, Mr. Joel C. Cortez. Thank you for being a part. I think we'll talk about basketball again at some point. I don't know, maybe never. I guess
we'll try. We'll try
again.
Still
playing? The Lakers won the championship. What's going on?
We'll try again next week. Who's to say? But yeah, George McGinnis, rest in peace, big fella, and it was fun. 161 episodes in the books. Here we go.